2020 only meets on December
They
12th.
haven't said. Remember, we tried this years ago.
Whatever the meet, before we get started.
The meet before we meet, right?
Yeah.
So they'll meet after we meet?
So
There says no time frame. Then we lose them. Grandfather or something happened.
Something about
Because they do, the employees are 2018 is when they come.
So,
But the county's not gonna take the county's through, regardless what happens to them. Whatever we do, they're through, right?
that's my understanding. Then something else is coming up.
Answers to my questions.
They said they're gonna put in student rise up there.
Folks are going crazy over there.
So,
I don't think that's gonna be a thing. Plus, you have to realize all three of the second re-signs at us, so much. Man.
so Bob bought you, I went to the, that's why I never went to school board, bought you a copy of their.
Thank you.
Is that your
Take care.
understanding of the county
Thank you
council
very much
schedule?
for responding to Vicky.
Oh, yeah, she did an excellent job.
I thought you did too.
Yeah.
She's one of those people who kind of needs the
Yeah,
encouragement.
I'm glad then, okay.
Thank
She
you.
did, and then it was in the midnight hour, we didn't have to give her a lot of time either.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
What is it? It's the second Tuesday of the month.
So Oliver,
Yeah, he would know.
So they would use the second Tuesday.
so we don't, but can we put some,
This is to put some parameters in there.
at least have a discussion and pass it without saying we need to have a discussion.
That would be one.
Because we're not.
Anybody want water?
I got water out there, but I don't know where it went.
Because see, I was leaning towards
Joe, would you like water?
I'm well fortified, thank you.
That's what I'm doing.
then we
Yeah,
need
you
to
want
have
switch?
some level of discussion.
So it's just a little tonight.
Second Tuesday of the month.
I'm sorry.
Some of us, you plus the regular.
Mike said it's
It's what?
it's the second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock. Next month it's gonna be different every time.
And we're scheduled at 11.
We're scheduled at about 15-20%. Or 15 is about
Yeah, but they're gonna pay, they're just not paying for the bus.
This is still, it's still
We have to go like,
13%.
And that gives
It
us,
is.
and then you say that. Yeah, then you say that.
It's just a different way of looking at the same number. And this is actually less.
There you go. And you're fully zooked. I'm telling you.
that's money.
You know, the first time I met her,
But we need to have a discussion, we need to also recommend.
For 2 minutes.
Work on changes, and then changes there.
After, you know, this, that's,
That makes
I mean, we like that. So the, elected official.
Well,
But then they can't make
one way or the
that.
other.
So especially those ones who put on the committee. So if we don't, then
But I mean, the whole thing is, they want to have this. But the bottom line is, we push it to the right. Then when there's committees already, they don't even one time to discuss. So they
it's like we are.
well, my thing is, we don't have to, you don't have to do it. Well, I'm not, so the bottom line is, then how do we, I think we have to come up with how do we have a second, not this year.
Not this year.
But I'm talking about in future years. There's been a meeting with those.
Hey there. Yeah, I would still like to have one meeting in December, especially after the budget, whatever the other issues.
Which hasn't been signed yet.
That's fine.
So then I So, yeah, put it in there. Oh, shit. Look, if you go, yeah, I understand, but you know, it's like, I really like the concept. What you just said, I'll try to be so
You guys ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Good evening. The Monday, November 27th Common Council meeting is now in session. Would you please rise? Our invocation is by Pastor Eddie Reese of Fish Lake Community Church. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Father, this evening we come before you. First of all, grateful for a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. We ask now that by your presence you would sanction your blessing upon each and every one of us. We thank you, Father, for the officials you've placed to serve us. We ask that this evening great good would come from these deliberations. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Ms. Fowler, roll call.
Councilmember Preston?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Councilmember Broden?
Here.
Councilmember Varner?
Present.
Vice President Davis?
Present.
Councilmember Vorty?
Here.
Councilmember Furlick?
Here.
Councilmember White?
Present.
President Scott?
Present.
9 present.
Thank you. At this point, we will not have report of subcommittee on minutes, so we'll move to special business. At this time, we do have a proclamation for Habitat for Humanity. So, Ms. White, you need to present?
Yes, I'm going to ask the other three sponsors to join me at the podium.
Thank you.
And we'd like to ask Don, Iris, George, if he's here, and Jackie to join us at the podium if they're present. My name is Karen White. I live at 1912 Bell Way here in South Bend, and I'm very proud to be one of the sponsors of this very outstanding proclamation, a resolution, in honor of 4 outstanding individuals whose work with rebuilding together for St. Joseph County speaks for itself. I know Mr. Vorty is going to present from the chair. At this time, we will be presenting to the council after the clerk has had opportunity to read the heading for this particular resolution.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, publicly recognizing and commending Mr. Larry Bauer, Mr. Don Fozo, Mrs. Iris Outlaw, Mr. Joyce Ifa, and Mrs. Jackie Rucker for their long-standing commitment to rebuild together St. Joseph County.
Good evening. I'm Oliver Davis, 1801 Nashville, South Bend, Indiana, 46613. Also proud to be one of the sponsors of this resolution. And I'll read and begin. A resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, publicly recognizing and commending Mr. Larry Bauer, Mr. Don Fozo, Mrs. Iris Outlaw, Mr. George Efta, and Ms. Jackie Rucker for their long-standing commitment to rebuilding together St. Joseph County. Whereas the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana is humbled to honor and publicly recognize the many years of service performed by the recently resigned Rebuilding Together board members, and whereas Mr. Larry Bauer served for 23 years from 1994 to 2017, Mr. Don Fozo served for 23 years from 1992 to 2015, Mrs. Iris Outlaw served for 23 years from 1993 to 2016. Mr. George Efta served for 20 years from 1996 to 2016. And Mrs. Jackie Rucker served for 14 years from 2003 to 2017. And
Whereas Rebuilding Together St. Joseph County, formerly known as Christmas in April, is a nonprofit, community-based partnership of volunteers from local government, businesses, and other nonprofits whose purpose is to improve through rehabilitation the homes of low-income homeowners, especially the elderly or disabled. And whereas since St. Joseph County's chapter began in 1989, volunteers have donated their time and services, generating nearly $11.5 million in repairs to 650 homes in 8 neighborhoods. And
whereas since 1989, Rebuilding Together has completed projects in many South Bend neighborhoods: Northeast, Southeast, West Washington, West Side St. Casimir, Brum Village, Northwest and near Northwest, near West Side Partnership Center, Marquette/Keller Park, Lincoln School, River Park, West Side, and LaSalle. And whereas volunteers from the St. Joseph Valley Building and Construction Trades Council and other skilled contractors and volunteers from community organizations and businesses complete the skilled work, with 89% of the donated funds directly benefiting the recipients of the program. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend as follows.
Section 1. It is my distinct honor to publicly commend and honor the service of Mr. Larry Bauer, Mr. Don Fozo, Mrs. Iris Outlaw, Mr. George Efta, and Ms. Jackie Rucker for their countless contributions made to our community through their leadership on the Rebuilding Together Board. Section 2. On behalf of the City of South Bend, Indiana, I am most humbled to thank Mr. Larry Bauer, Mr. Don Fozo, Mrs. Iris Outlaw, Mr. George Efta, and Ms. Jackie Rucker for their long-standing service and commitment to our city, and wish them all the luck in their retirements.
Section 3. This resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its adoption by the council and approved by the mayor. We seek your approval of this resolution.
Thank you. Council members, is there anything you'd like to add or say?
No, just congratulations on all the great work. Thank you.
This represents 103 years collectively of experience on that board. That's amazing. And congratulate you and thank you very sincerely for all your service.
Yeah, I know everyone looks forward to the activities of the Rebuilding Together every year, and whenever it's announced, there's always a sigh when the person gets, particularly in their district, and when it's some other districts, well, maybe next year. But in 24, 25 years, you've covered a lot of ground, and we really appreciate those efforts. Your leadership and the folks who helped out along the way, it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Congratulations, great vision as board members, great leadership over the years. The impact and just the longevity alone, I mean, all of those are just amazing things. I know we've all benefited within our own our neighborhoods within the community. I particularly like this program, and I love this program because it really hits. It seems routinely because it is so well orchestrated between the funding partners, the trades that come together on this, the breadth of the trades that partake in this, and then the volunteers from all different areas of our community, with the big impact being two very vulnerable communities, the elderly and disabled. And but for your work within this space, our community would be dramatically different. So what a wonderful legacy. What a wonderful thing to have you to be a part of, and just a deep, deep, deep gratitude for your service, and to know it's all volunteer and has been volunteer for so long blows me away, as it should everybody in this room and throughout our community. So thank you very much.
$11 million worth of work is remarkable, but I don't think it begins to speak to the level and the amount of goodwill that you brought to our community through your work. So thank you so much and congratulations.
Regina?
This is the kind of thing that is really near and dear to my heart. I mean, there's really nothing more important. I mean, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy, right? Shelter is right there. And just the whole concept of what Christmas in April, Rebuilding Together, has really brought to this community. People getting together, rolling up their sleeves, and helping neighbors. And that's really what makes a community great. And I'm so excited to be honored to bring you this resolution to the council tonight. On your behalf, thank you for your service.
Karen,
It's truly an honor to be one of the sponsors, and you help us to bring Christmas all year round. And so the person's about to be staying on a few more weeks from our schools. I say thank you.
I would like to say thank you not only to the council, the sponsors, but also to the 4 individuals who are honoring today, but I know there's thousands of individuals behind the work that you've done. I really love the title because it speaks to what we as a community, as we begin to look at certain areas and certain needs, it's going to take us working together. So I like Rebuilding Together because it tells it's going to be a collaborative effort. So I thank each and every one of you, all the trades, everyone that has given time to ensure that this particular program continues with its legacy.
And just finally, I want to apologize. I introduced as Habitat for Humanity. I'm going to blame it on the turkey and being on vacation. So I truly appreciate everything that you do. Representing the near northwest or the northwest side of South Bend is something that we council members have talked about so many times, and so many individuals that I've talked to and referred to you guys. And we could do this every week. I know the energy and the ability to do that. We know we don't have that financial resources, but it is something that is desperately needed and appreciated in the neighborhood. And we thank you so much for what you've done for this. So thank you. So with that, I will open it up to the public. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor of this resolution? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against this resolution? Seeing none, we'll turn it back to council.
Move for adoption by acclamation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for this. Hello. Thank you. Hey, Tom. Congrats. I didn't know when you were coming behind me. The ink is still wet, Dawn.
That is nice.
Get them together, Vice President.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
Pretty good. Still married.
Can be a very good thing.
Gotta go back. Thank you all.
Nice touch.
Good job. Okay, we'll continue. At this point, we do not have any reports from city offices. The mayor's office is represented by Susanna Pritzberg and Laura O'Sullivan. Thank you for being here. Entertain a motion to rise to committee hall.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Can you pass that down, please? Oliver?
Oh, sorry.
The committee of the whole is now in session. This is the portion of the council meeting where the full council meets as a committee. During each ordinance, members of the public will have an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition. Your comments will be limited to 5 minutes per bill. With that, would the city clerk please read 6817?
6817, public hearing on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and seeking a special exception for property located at 403 South Prairie Street, Councilmanic District Number 4 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, the zoning and annexation committee met and we bring this with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Presenter, please.
Good evening, Angela Smith from the Area Planning Commission's office located on the 9th floor of this building. The petitioner is seeking to rezone the property highlighted here in red from SF2 single-family and two-family to LI Light Industrial District. It's at the corner of Perry and what is commonly known as Western Avenue. To the north and to the west are properties zoned LI Light Industrial District. To the south are properties zoned SF2 single-family and two-family, and to the east across Perry Street are apartments zoned Avenue Use District. This is a aerial image looking south. You can see what used to be a single-family home, which has been demolished to make way for an expansion of the Robert Henry Corporation, and as the site currently exists now. I will note that under the site plan they provided, the amount of parking shown here would not be permitted, as the first 10 feet would be the applied setback, and there would be landscaping there as well. So that first trailer you can see in the picture would not be permitted under the setbacks that were granted subject to the rezoning. The existing site is only 0.7 acres and is proposed to be a gravel storage lot screened by an 8-foot opaque fence and landscaping along Perry Street. This comes to you from the Area Planning Commission with no recommendation on the rezoning and a favorable recommendation on the special exception use. This is a two-part ordinance that includes rezoning to the LA Light Industrial District and a special exception use for outdoor storage in excess of 20% of the total gross floor area of buildings in the lot. Since there's no buildings on the lot, that exceeds it pretty quickly. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a petitioner present? Please state your name and address.
Thank you. Mike Dan from Dan Charn and Associates, 1643 Common Striker in South Bend, representing the petitioner, Robert Henry Corporation, and also with the committee this evening is Mr. Stephen Henry, who will answer any questions that you may have as well. What Angela had said is what we're asking for is rezoning from the SF2 district to the LI district for approximately 3,000 square feet of area. It's right there at the southwest corner of Western and Perry Street. As we had showed council at the committee meeting, what we're just trying to do is take the lot that had a house on it. Back in 2016, the Robert Henry Corporation purchased the property. There was a house on the property that was in a dilapidated condition. Mr. Henry bought the property, removed the house, thought it was a detriment to the neighborhood, and as part of that process, before he had purchased it, he had also talked with the city department, DCI. At the time, there was a Brian Pawlowski there, and before he had purchased the property, he had asked Brian Pawlowski whether his expansion plan for this particular 3,000 square feet area would be a problem. He was told at the time that it would not be, that the city could back that particular project. He went ahead and bought the property and have come forward in time. What we have to do, though, is you're not allowed just to go out and put down gravel. You actually have to go through a rezoning process. When I was contacted, I immediately contacted the building department and Area Planning Commission staff to find out exactly what needed to be done to bring this into compliance with the zoning ordinance. So this evening, what you see before you is that request to do the LI district to allow for restore that gravel area. As Angela had mentioned, what we would also be doing in order to add some protection along the south side and east side of the property, we'd be doing a solid 8-foot high wood screening fence. There would also be a screen fence along the north side of it, showing Western Avenue. The setback, Angela had mentioned, is coming back from the sidewalk, which is the right-of-way line from Perry Street. There would be a 10-foot landscape area. So not only would you have the wood screening fence, but there would also be evergreen trees there to create a streetscape. So any equipment that would be stored on that small portion of the site would be screened from the street directly. One of the other things we're asking council to do, part of the zoning ordinance, is because we are going to the LI district, you're limited among square footage for what we call outside storage is 20%. And that's usually based if you have a building. 3,000 square foot piece of property, there is no building. So as part of the rezoning process, we have to ask for a special exception, even though we use just like the 2,000 square feet of gravel area. One of the things Mr. Henry had also done is talk to the neighborhood association, told them the plans about what he would like to do here. They were in favor of what was going on here. There is a Howard Park Village plan for this particular area as well. There were some residents that had shown up at the area plan commission meeting concerned that if this 3,000 square feet of property would be rezoned to LI, somehow that would affect that plan. What we would say to council is that we understand that this rezoning is only a temporary use. We're only going to be doing gravel. We will not be doing permanent pavement here. That will still allow the plan that is envisioned for this Howard Park area to go forward at some other point in time. The developer could come in, buy up all of the Robert Henry property and rezone it to residential and continue the expansion project for residential, which will allow for townhomes, which are happening farther to the west of this particular site. This is, again, just a temporary situation. There is no other way to do it under the South Bend zoning codes other than come through the rezoning process. We cannot do a land use variance and leave the existing zoning in place and then just ask for approval to use a gravel parking area. So we have to go through the rezoning process. What we would ask council to do is approve both the special exception and the rezoning. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to.
Any questions for presenter or petitioner from council? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Please state your name and address. And you can sign once you're done if you'd like.
Mary Bundy, 318 South Francis Street, South Bend. I'm here representing the residents of the Howard Park neighborhood as president of the Howard Park Neighborhood Association. We had Steve Henry come to our neighborhood meeting, and all of the people who were at that meeting, by the time the meeting was over, there was no opposition, and being generally in favor of this is the best use of the property. I then walked the neighborhood and approached people who were not at the neighborhood meeting, and out of those residents and property owners, especially on Quimby, after speaking with them, there was no opposition. In fact, they were all for it, hoping for a privacy fence. So, in general, the neighborhood association and the residents in the area are for this use of the property. We think it's the best use of the property. I would like to speak to a few things. One being the use of the property of light industrial going backward, since we're talking about this all moving in a residential direction. That particular property is not, no matter what happens with that property, would not affect the ongoing development. You can't see it from Francis Street. And in fact, it's better for the neighborhood to have an unsightly falling down property removed. And then the fact that they're not going to pave it is wonderful because, like Herb already stated, it makes it easier for someone to come in and change it. So I think that's important to note, that it's really not going to affect the ongoing development. Another thing I'd like to speak to is the fact that someone said that the city of South Bend isn't taking this area and moving toward residential seriously if they rezone it. Well, what I'd like to say to that is, what's happening in this neighborhood is not driven by the city. It's driven by the market. People want to live here, and it's a great area. It's highly walkable. It's a wonderful place to live, and people who see that want to live here. And then the more the people move in, the more that's going to drive the Robert Henry Corporation out. Is, you know, residents say, well, we want it to be residential, and we love you, Robert Henry Corporation. But, you know, everyone knows that we want it to be residential. I don't see that the rezoning of this property is something that's going to hinder that, is basically what I'm saying. And so I'd like to reiterate that as residents of the Howard Park neighborhood, we are in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in favor, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council. What's your pleasure?
Move for favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 7017?
7017, public hearing on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at the northeast corner of Niles Avenue and Cedar Street, Councilmanic District Number 4 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, the zoning annexation committee met, and we bring this also with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a presenter, please?
Good evening, Angela Smith from the Area Planning Commission's office is located in the Lawrence Building. Petitioner seeking to rezone just over an acre here at the northeast corner of Niles and Cedar Street for a parking lot to serve the Beacon property that you can see just off the screen there at Crescent and Niles. The current parcel outlined in red is split zone between CBD Central Business District and MU Mixed Use. This zoning would bring it all under the Central Business District, which is what the majority of the site is currently zoned. To the north and east are property zoned mixed use, and to the west and south are property zoned Central Business District. The site is currently vacant. As you can see here, there's a grade change which the petitioner would need to address during the development process, which he can speak to. As I mentioned, the 1.2 acre site will be used for a parking lot for approximately 107 parking spaces. This plan here shows the appropriate landscaping, and for the majority of it, the setback is consistent with that. There's a small area, and I can never get these arrows to work on the screen. There's a small pinch point right here, is what we call a pinch point, where the property lines don't follow the rest of the property lines of the property. If rezoned, that would, they received a variance for a setback reduction there, subject to the rezoning being passed by the council. This comes to you from the Area Planning Commission with a favorable recommendation. Rezoning the site to CBD Central Business District will bring the entire parcel under a common zoning designation and allow for a cohesive development of the site consistent with the character of the area. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a petitioner, please?
Thank you. I'm Dan from Dan Turner Associates, 1643 Commons Drive here in South Bend, representing Beacon Health Systems. As Angela had mentioned, what we're trying to do is do a consistent zoning for this particular area. There's a split zoning on the property right now between the mixed use and the CBD district. What Beacon Health would like to be able to do is to add additional parking. They have a administrative office just about a block north of this at Crescent and Niles Avenue. They have about 175 employees. At that particular facility right now, they believe on site there's about 86 parking spaces. So what they'd like to be able to do is get some additional parking for the employees that are within a block of that particular administrative building. As Angela mentioned, we're meeting all the setback requirements, all the landscaping requirements for this. The drainage on this site, if council has been to this particular location, it does slope from east to west, so we will be doing an underground retention area underneath the parking lot. There will also be a perimeter drain along Niles Avenue to pick up any surface runoff. So it doesn't go into Niles Avenue or down to Cedar Street, and it'll be held for the city standards. As Angela had also mentioned, one last thing we had done was we received a variance for a pinch point up at the northwest corner of the property. That was back from the 1870s when the original plat was done. For some reason, there was additional right-of-way taken. There's no structures there, but we had to ask for a variance from the 15-foot setback down to 5-foot for approximately 3 parking spaces. But there'll still be perimeter landscaping along the entire Cedar Street and Niles Avenue, so you will not see the cars directly from the streets into the parking lot. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions for presenter or petitioner? Seeing none from council, we move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Anyone from the public wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, back to the council. What's your pleasure?
Move for favorable recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 7117?
7117, public hearing on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 1032 Wayne Street, Councilmanic District Number 4 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Sorry, is there a committee report?
Yes, the zoning and annexation committee met. We have this bill brought to review with a favorable recommendation. However, we did want to, is this the one with the petitioner, is the petitioner present with us right now?
Yes, they are.
Pardon me?
Yes, they are.
Cool. Let's proceed.
Angela Smith from the Area Planning Commission with offices located in 11 Florence Building. Petitioner is seeking to rezone the property located here at the southwest corner of Wayne and Eddy. It's a small parcel that contains a residential structure currently zoned SF2 single family and 2 family. It was rezoned from the MU mixed use district in 2009 to the SF2 district. The owner at the time believed that that would help them with their property taxes, so they rezoned to residential to comply with some of that. To the north and to the east across Eddy are single family homes zoned SF1 and SF2, and to the south are apartments, or offices, zoned MU mixed use district. You can see from the image here that at the Wayne Street entrance has a residential character, but as you move along Eddy Street to the south, you can see where the business entrance used to serve and parking that's located at the rear of the site. The site plan is not proposing any changes to the site. There are spaces available on the rear of the site with alley access for up to 4 parking spaces. However, the mixed-use district no longer has a minimum parking requirement. If parking is provided, they have certain standards they have to meet, so they will be looking at those standards through the Area Planning Commission variances that they had approved. This comes to you with a favorable recommendation from the Area Planning Commission. Rezoning the site to MU mixed use will allow for the adaptive reuse of a structure that can be used for offices and residential, consistent with the character of the area. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there a petitioner, please? We'll do questions for presenter and petitioner after. Sorry.
No problem. I'm with this.
Hi, my name is Brad Emberton from Emberton Development. My address is 26230 Twin Lakes Trail, South Bend, Indiana. It's difficult to add much more to that thorough presentation, but this property was used as commercial property for nearly 100 years and mistakenly rezoned. There was little, if any, use of the property during that time. They never turned it into residential property, they left it as commercial property, and we think it just makes sense to return it back to its logical use.
Any questions for petitioner or
Yes,
presenter?
just for the record, in the area plan meeting, Ms. Bundy, I think also spoke in favor of this regarding the neighbors, something from that standpoint?
Yes, Mr. Davis, we met with the Neighborhood Association, explained our plan, talked to everybody, answered questions, and they spoke favorably.
Okay, so just wanted that for the record tonight. I know she just left out, so I don't see her.
Any other questions for presenter or petitioner? Seeing none, we'll move to the public portion. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor?
Hello everyone, I'm Adam Toring. I also live in the Howard Park neighborhood. I'm a member of the Howard Park Neighborhood Association that Mary also represents. Yes, Mr. Emberton did come and speak to us and we do support it. I also am a member, or Deputy Director of the Historic Preservation Commission. This is a landmark property, and so we are happy to see it being used as opposed to vacant and empty. So, thank you.
So, address for the record?
I'm sorry, 236 South Notre Dame.
All right.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else in favor, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. Back to the council. What do you have
To
a comment?
send 7117 to the full council favorably.
I apologize. I'm gonna- I
Yes,
think
please,
Councilmember
thanks.
Broden had a comment.
Is the petitioner aware that this is a historic property? We've had some issues in the past.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Great. With that, a motion?
7117 in full council favor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. City Clerk, would you please read 8017?
8017, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving an interlocal agreement between the City of South Bend and the County of St. Joseph to provide city management responsibilities for the Historic Preservation Commission of South Bend and St. Joseph County, the HPC, and amending Chapter 2, Articles 4, Section 2-13, Subpart B, 7 of the South Bend Municipal Code to include an administrative function of the Department of Community Investment.
Is there a committee report, please? Oh, yes. The Department of Community Investment.
I don't know, is there, Gavin?
Sends this forward with no recommendation. Is there a presenter, please?
Good evening, Council. James Mueller, Executive Director of Community Investment, with offices on the 14th floor of this building. The ordinance before you does two main things. First, it puts the responsibilities of historic preservation in the Department of Community Investment as contemplated in the 2018 budget. And second, it ratifies interlocal agreement between the county and the city. There was some lengthy discussion during the budget process and also earlier today in committee, and I will want to say, if we had been able to find the interlocal agreement, the primary changes we'd be seeking to amend would be purely on the staffing component. And so the changes we're looking at are on the staffing component, but we were unable to find the pre-existing interlocal agreement, and so therefore this is why we have a hole in it. It's the way we can talk to. We scoured. You can talk to the historic preservation staff, the legal departments, county, city, and no one can find it. But for peace of mind in this new interlocal agreement, if someone does find the old one, it makes clear that this new one supersedes that in case there's a late breaking fire. And so with that, the Historic Preservation Commission was never really contemplated to have changes at this moment in time. The things that were contemplated in both the budget and in the discussions were oversight of the staff to the historic preservation. And so that's what this does. There will be a second legislative action needed by the council and by the common council and by the county council to amend the historic preservation parts of the code. That's set to go before the Area Plan Commission in the December meeting and will come to you sometime in January, depending on the schedule. We've got a suggestion that maybe we could have a discussion in committee in the December meeting, just briefly update what's coming before Area Plan and before the full council in January. And so we're happy to give an update in the December meeting on that second ordinance that's coming before you. And finally, I will say, just because the commission has kind of always been contemplating its continuity, we've heard the requests of the community and of council members and others that the Historic Preservation Commission needs to be more customer service minded, and believe me, we will work tirelessly to make sure that happens. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
I just want to make sure that during the committee meeting this afternoon, there was discussions about whether to continue until our December meeting, but I've since learned that there's a time frame deadline that we have to meet in order for it to move to the next level. Can you maybe share a bit more about that?
Sure. So this is an interlocal agreement that has to be approved by 4 main bodies. It has to be approved by both councils, the city and the council, or county council. It has to be ratified by the mayor and ratified by the county commissioners. And it has to be the same text in all of those. So if we were to contemplate changes, given the timeline, it would be difficult to know how we would get them on all the agendas without special sessions and the like. And I don't know the travel schedules of all the different bodies within the city.
Yes, Councilmember Broden?
Sort of follow up, difficult but not impossible, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but we meet on the 11th, and then does not the county council meet on the 19th? December. I just really want somebody, just let me know it's not possible, because then I would make another recommendation versus postponing this.
I would say practically very difficult. Wouldn't say impossible. You can have special sessions of all these bodies.
Why,
But I
would
think
it
would be-
require, I'll be more specific, would it require special sessions? If, let's say, we worked on it jointly this week to make sure that everybody's apprised of, that some questions are answered that have been posed, that everyone's apprised of the changes, there is agreement, unless my assumption is that hasn't happened yet, where the county council or common council members have actually looked at this jointly together. So that's, I guess, what I would just want to know, that does the calendar allow, because of the 11th date that we have scheduled and the county council date of the 19th, it would allow any changes to the interlocal.
Quick question on that, Mrs. Bowden. What day does the commissioners meet?
Without a special meeting, that's without special.
No, what's their regular date for the commission? The 5th is for the commission?
Brett,
Commissioners meet on the first and third Tuesday.
First and third Tuesday?
Yes, the county council meets on the second Tuesday, and their committees are typically held on the fourth Tuesday. However, in December, they are meeting on December 19th.
So then,
And they only have one committee.
The committees are meeting?
They only have one committee meeting per month.
Yeah.
So that's a committee meeting. Yes.
A couple questions. One, Ms. Broden, you're assuming that the county council members want to be in part of this process.
yes, that is an assumption.
Every council member I've talked to in the county, they don't care about it now that the decision's been made. And I don't understand what changes. Are you recommending certain changes to the interlocal right now that need to be made?
Yes, I would make changes to the interlocal, or just make sure that changes were contemplated in the process.
Specifically,
would you like
just
me to
give me an
go-
example of one change.
So one change would be with regard to the term, if either side terminates, okay, within this interlocal, to go from a joint board to separate boards, operating independently by city and county. One possible transition or one possible amendment to this specific interlocal is to actually include the options, not the requirement, to it revert to the previous structure, which you're currently operating under, or to the Area Plan Commission. What this interlocal agreement as proposed actually precludes us from looking at those options in the future. So then that would be, again, if this does not work out or if either party decides to terminate. So that's one point. A second point would be there is nothing, there's very little in this agreement with regard to evaluative measures and who is responsible for that. And even the reporting requirements precludes us as a council. So maybe it would be a courtesy and maybe it would be best practices, but if we are going to be adding an entire department, and this is a transitional year of very important services to our community, and often can have contentious issues come up, I would like to have be in the position as a council member, or at least that we have some structure in place that would be able to address some of these, this oversight portion of it. The second is to come and actually propose this extensive overview or this extensive change, and unless other council members have seen it, I have not. Apparently there is a transition plan, and I'm certain that's a draft plan at this point, but to come and to make a decision of this magnitude and not have any awareness of what that plan is and what the benchmarks are, and again, what the evaluative measures are, I have an issue. So other amendments?
Thank you.
Would you like me to
Nope.
continue?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Mr. Mueller, the one point that Ms. Broughton made at the beginning was the severability, and that the recommended change that would go back to the county if there was a severability. County would never take this on. Do you agree?
Say almost certain they would.
And they have no
not agree
budget to do
any of
that.
those options.
Okay.
So those are off the table.
All right, thank you.
I would like to continue, if I might, with some of my recommended amendments. Councilmember Furlick, please.
Actually, if you don't mind, at this time, we'll do questions, and then
Yeah.
we'll go back to
Okay,
comments.
great.
And
Thank you.
I'll reserve time during comments for comments. Any questions for?
Does she have questions, or
presenter?
does she have comments, or does she have both?
No, Joe, if you have questions right now, you're more than welcome to ask, but if they're just comments or recommendations for changes, then we'll do it after the public portion.
Okay. Give me a moment, please.
And you can ask questions during that portion too. Yes, Dr. Varner, do you have a question?
Yeah, from an administrative perspective, you say there's two steps that we need to take care of, tonight's and then the second one by the end of the year. From an administrative perspective going forward, under the Department of DCI, do you believe that administratively the management can be handled by DCI working with HPC, or do you anticipate there would be a number of further amendments or changes? You believe your new interlocal agreement places it under the DCI, and that administratively you can operate under the interlocal agreement and fulfill because there's statutory requirements also.
Yeah, we fully anticipate to be able to execute on what's contemplated in the interlocal agreement. We can't say for certain what the county will decide to do middle of next year or the year after that, or they may decide they want to. Who knows what they decide? I imagine they'll stick with it given the efficiencies that we're able to provide.
But you have an agreement in place until such time as they decide to do something differently.
Right, that's what's in the.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we will open up to the public portion at this time. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, I'm Elisha Fiesel, Executive Director of the Historic Preservation Commission of South Bend and St. Joseph County, and my address is at 125 South Lafayette, across the street in the Law Building. I am here tonight to speak in support of the interlocal agreement and the transfer of Historic Preservation Commission to city, particularly DCI, from St. Joseph County. With that said, I would like to speak to the process by which this has been done. This is not an easy thing for me to say in a public forum, but it echoes the comments that myself and my other staff member made directly to the county council when they were going through the budget process. In particular, we were concerned that there would be a loss of services to the citizens of St. Joseph County. I think your conversation is proving that to be true. One thing in the interlocal agreement that it does show is that the county has decided on $11,250 as their budget for historic preservation for 2018. That is 300 hours at $37.50 per hour or 6 hours per week. That's not adequate to cover the services that we currently provide to the county. As you may or may not know, we are the only code enforcement that the county has. We follow minimum maintenance standards for the county, which is also enforced by building department. That is something extra that they enforce on our behalf. In order to do minimum maintenance standard surveying, we actually need to travel to the county landmarks, of which there are 74. And that's something that we have found to take approximately 15 months to be able to travel to. In addition to our schedule, we have to manage the staffing at the office to make sure somebody's in the office, at least for most of the time during business hours. So it takes about 15 months to get out to all 74 landmarks. We provide a report to those owners. Spoke with an owner today that owns a farm on Portage Road in the county, and she said that our minimum maintenance standard surveys are helpful to property owners because rather than being reactive, it's a proactive way of helping the owners understand what problems may be showing on their property. And it's an invitation to work with us. We just don't feel like 6 hours a week is going to be adequate to do that work. And so in our attempts to preserve our function within the county budget, Adam, my deputy director, and I spoke to the council, to the county council, and I think at that time we were perceived as being adversarial to this change occurring. And I'd like to say very sincerely to you that it was not adversarial to becoming a city department. My concern was about the process. It was about, for the last however many years you all have been discussing this, council members to council members, I was under the impression that this was a discussion about balancing the budget. So if we have approximately 70% of the properties that are designated in the city of South Bend and 30 in the county roughly, but the budget is approximately 70% being spent by the county and 30% being spent by the city, what I thought to be the case was that we were talking about a balancing of the budget. We were talking about the city of South Bend paying for what's fair for the services that we provide to the city of South Bend. Only to find out for the first time in June of last year that this was not a conversation about balancing the budget, that this was a conversation about the department transferring. That was the first time I was made aware of it, and I was never included in the process to find out how we could actually make a smooth transition. With that being said, I'm going back to my original statement of support. I am very much in support of this shift because after the councils voted on their budgets, county, city, we immediately began working with the Department of Community Investment on creating a transition plan and providing services to both city and county that did not mean a loss of services.
And you have 1 minute.
What's that?
You have 1 minute.
Okay. And in the last month, I can confidently say that we're going to transition into the Department of Community Investment, where I feel we're being very welcomed. We're well aligned with the planning department, which will oversee us. And I think that we will find those efficiencies that will allow us to continue our services in the county. One more point that I have to make. We have received a number of calls from county landmarked owners that are concerned and actually frustrated at the staff of Historic Preservation Commission that we haven't done enough to make them aware of this happening. They actually are saying that they would have liked to have been included in the process as well, in particular the updates to the ordinances. So we had another person call today in response to the 95.3 comments that were made by President Scott. And so we do have people that are frustrated that they haven't been made aware of this. I'm particularly talking about the 1,000 properties that are designated by landmark or in historic districts.
You have 10 seconds.
Okay. So if there's something that we can do better, send out a mass mailing. If there's something that we can do better to make them aware and to include them in the process, that's all I could ask for. I'm speaking in support on their behalf of that. Thank you.
Hello again.
Hi.
Adam Torring, Deputy Director. My offices are across the street, 125, as well as 236 South Notre Dame Avenue. I guess I'm speaking in both. My first day with Historic Preservation was September 5th. And we were notified on September 6th that this process was going about. Since that point, I have attended a number of county council meetings advocating on behalf of these landmark property owners and ensuring that the county's needs are made throughout that process, as well as the city's needs are met. I think we would agree that there's an imbalance in that payment structure. So we look forward to that being rectified, and we're hoping that this will happen. Alicia and I, we had our concerns. There were cautions that flew up in our mind about this process, but we're looking forward to these streamlined operations that the city is bringing to us. We're looking forward to digitizing our records. We've got mounds of data that coming into the office, I joked, like, I'm thankful that in this interlocal agreement that we have years to work with the data that we have, because we've got that much. And I was joking with someone from the building department today that I'm sort of thankful for that, because I still don't know where half the records are. I'm still learning. Part of this process, unfortunately for me, has been devoted to ensuring that these properties are kept and protected throughout this process. And we've tried and strove not to give up on doing our daily duties and ensuring all those applications that are coming in are not dropped by the wayside. That's still going on as well. So this is a balancing act for us, trying to ensure that everything is protected, because we're the stewards of that, through you guys, through the ordinances that you have created. We protect those. And so we're excited about the transition. Yeah, there's, as I said, concerns, but we're looking forward to getting the job done come January 1. So I would implore you, please make it happen. We want to do it. That's all. Thank you.
Seeing no one else in favor, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public portion is closed. We have comments from Councilmember Broden expressed an interest, and Ben Aller.
Thank you very much. So a couple additional amendments is to require transition updates, not to both the South Bend Common Council, the HPC Commission, and the current interlocal does not specify to whom within the county. So are we talking to the county executives? Some clarification on the county executives or county council or both. And then specifically language that would have those transition updates benchmarked against the yet-to-be-seen transition plan or its draft or its overview. And then another recommended change, if you would, that I think the benefit of additional time could help us look at, aside from the evaluative piece that I think is so important to make sure that we do get this right during this year. I would argue that this type of change and the complexity of it would necessitate or should necessitate our working closely with DCI and with the historic preservation staff and the commission, as well as representatives of the county. Within this interlocal, there is a monthly staff requirement report on activities and time, and that is only limited to the calendar year 2018, but yet this interlocal agreement contemplates an automatic renewal. So, getting back to also the automatic renewal without any evaluation process from the main legislative bodies that are party to this agreement, I think is an oversight.
Just to clarify, would you like to right now make any of these specific amendments? Do you want to make any motions for those amendments?
I guess my first recommendation is, if it does not necessitate special meetings by the council, that we actually postpone this vote, and that we work to clean up some of these issues, and then short of that, yes, I would like to include at least the 4 or 5 that I have mentioned tonight, so I will revisit that later. I guess alternatively is if there is a way to integrate the legislative bodies within this interlocal to have a more specific, evaluative role going forward. So I can make the amendments, but I'm not keen to doing that on the floor. I think that's poor legislative.
Okay. And just to clarify, if at this point is the document that's being considered by the county council, is there if there were a couple select amendments to that from the city council's perspective, is that an adequate time to share with county council, or what are your thoughts on if there were a couple amendments made this evening? I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
I think it would be very difficult to get the same text approved by all 4 bodies before the end of the year.
Okay, if there are any amendments.
If there are any amendments.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Have all 4 bodies already seen this agreement?
I believe they've been, they're coming up at the commissioners meeting, and it's on the county council agenda, so they.
I mean, it's on their agenda, but have they all, how can I put it? If it's, the reason I say that is this. Have they all, in a sense, seen it and given you a good impression that they are willing to go with it? Because if they haven't all seen it, if we pass this tonight with amendments, wouldn't that be in the package that they would see too?
I mean, so these interlocal agreements are complicated. There are 4 bodies. There's 9 of you. There's 9 of the county council. There are 3 commissioners and the mayor involved in this. So there have been representatives of all these bodies in this under, you know, and our understanding is that yes, it's set to go through. The county is not interested in making any further changes, and they're ready to move it through their process on both bodies.
So my thing is this: listening to, even if you exclude the one I was bringing up, which I really think is a major issue, just listening to what Councilwoman Broden is suggesting here, given the fact that A, they're not going to really finance anything, B, if there's anything that comes back to them, they really want to disband this anyway. So C, they really, in so many words, don't care about the historical preservation, with all due respect to my dear colleagues over there on that side of the aisle. 4, so the issue then comes in what we care about. Is that not the most important thing? And if we have the majority, wouldn't that not encourage the mayor to sign along with that too? So that's 2 of the bodies that would be really pricked. And the commissioners, since they have the same issue with that standpoint, since the funding is coming through us, would that not expedite the time? I mean, I see.
It's possible that we could do the changes, and it's possible we could come to agreement both as a city and as a county. It's based off of how they've gone so far. It's very unlikely you'll even get an answer by, in time to move it through the appropriate bodies.
So what makes it the question that I'm trying to get in my brain? What makes them going to give us an answer on the current document more so than what is possible issues with us? That's the issue I'm saying. Have they already seen it and given me that? I have to go back to my first question. Because
representatives have seen it and have signed off on it. Yes.
Pardon me?
Certain representatives of those bodies have looked at it and signed off on it.
So they have all. So are we the last one in this? With all fairness to us?
You're not the last one. No, you were actually the first one to go through the full body.
I should put it this way then. So in those other bodies, then it has not come before them in a full council meeting, at a commissioners meeting, at a county council meeting. It has not come before them yet.
No, I mean they did have, because they were in the budget process. They had a number of conversations, as did we. We had during our special budget session here on that Monday before the budget vote. We had a number of questions about the transition and things. There were some written questions that we. From that we also responded to. So I mean, you guys have been in the loop.
So great. So basically, outside of budgetary questions, because we had that too. I mean, in all fairness, we did. And some of our questions we backed off because we thought we were going to have more time. At least I did. So outside of budgetary issues, okay, have they had the opportunity? That's what I'm saying. We know everybody's had county voted in the budget, commissioners, and everybody. We already did that. Okay, that's passed. But have they, this second phase that we are now moving into, we passed the budget part of it. Mm-hmm. Now we're being asked to do something outside of the budget part of it, okay? To really ratify what we did with the budget part of it. Have they seen that one? Because it seems to me that from talking to everybody who's talking to me this evening, that this current document, if we pass it, it's a green light for everybody else. What gives everybody that confidence that it's such a green light, and gives everybody, if we made a couple of changes here tonight, what gives everybody the yellow light? I haven't had that really explained to me clearly tonight. Because I heard that there was only one meeting, then I've been told tonight that there's 2 meetings in December for that. So, it kind of, see what I'm saying? Are we
I mean, I think from the city perspective, the big issue was the staffing change. This, as I mentioned earlier, this is purely contemplated as a staffing change from the county staff to the city staff. there are these other associated questions, but that was the primary concern. The concern was, would the city be willing to take on the staff, which was discussed and approved during the budget cycle. Some of these reporting requirements for the county is because they're no longer overseeing the staff. You guys, we're happy to come in, whenever you guys want, we're happy to come in because, we come in to report on, and I'll give you updates on things all the time. But the thing was keeping the county comfortable that we weren't going to blow through their 300-hour cap and then say, hey, through February, and then say, hey, in March, can you come up with an additional 40,000?
I'm glad you said that. So basically, what I'm hearing from you is that as long as we don't blow through their 300-hour cap very quickly, okay, these other issues that Councilwoman Broden has said, or let's put the commissioners on that side of town too. And again, we even eliminate my issue. I'll come back to that. I'll concede to President Scott that we can come back in a year to look at that. But I do plan to come back to that. Because I strongly feel that way. But these other issues that we're talking about, we're not going through, if we don't blow through the 300 hours, we're not adding any more money or requesting any money from them. We're not requesting any more staff. We're keeping all of our staff. We're keeping all of our benefits. We're not changing any of those kind of things that we talked about. We're doing all of that. Then what in the world would the county have issues with regarding what we are talking about here?
If this is what if the council wants to put in jeopardy getting the same
No.
passed by all four bodies.
You're using the word jeopardy. My thing is,
it is in jeopardy. It would be in jeopardy.
Why is it? Then why is the current thing not in jeopardy?
Because all signals are that everyone's ready to pass it. And until today, I didn't realize there were concerns from our council.
John, you had some comments?
Yeah. I think we all recognize city, county, elected officials, administrative officials, the importance of the historic preservation function. Preserving our heritage and holding on to what has made us what we are today, it is vital. The work that the historic preservation staff and the commission have done to date is commendable, I think. They've done a good job. They've helped the city establish historic preservation districts. They've maintained standards. They've established, they help homeowners who own historic properties through both advice and materials in a lot of cases. There was a disproportionate workload, as we've heard, vis-a-vis city or county. City was paying 30% and requiring 70% of staff time. I guess we could have proceeded and said, okay, we'll now pay 70% of your budget as opposed to the 30% we were paying. Had we done that, had that even been discussed, I'm not sure I would have been comfortable with that because we would have no oversight over what they're doing or how they're doing it. Or would there be reporting benchmarks or requirements? Now that it is intended to be under the city, we will have all sorts of oversight. We can ask your department, Dr. Mueller, for reports to however we determine, whatever we determine is necessary, quarterly or otherwise. I think as a council, we have to keep in mind that our responsibility is legislative and oversight, not administrative in the minutiae of details of how departments are run. I think it's a vote of confidence and a vote of faith in how you run your department and the money we've appropriated to your department for 2018 to be able to work with these folks to take things, to continue the good work that they do. And probably in a better fashion because undoubtedly they'll have more resources having direct access to our planners who I respect.
It's someone to answer the phone.
And I don't think that it is our role to decide who's doing what and how they're going about doing it. We have, as introduced we've gone through 2 cycles of performance-based budgeting now, correct? And the second year was better than the first. I contemplate that the third year is going to be better than last year in terms of meaningful review, establishment of goals, objectives, performance-based budgeting, the essence of what it is. We will have that oversight in the 2018 process as we're formulating 2019. A lot's going to happen in terms of melding city and county together. I think it's incumbent upon us to allow this to go forward and step out of the way of administrators, both you folks in community investment and historic preservation, to get this done. We're going to end up with a better product. I know we will, because everybody really wants the same thing, and this is the way to go about it. That's all I have to say.
With that, yes?
With all due respect, I believe that I can concur on voting tonight. Okay, I can. But I will not concur on voting tonight in the sense that I'm doing it out of the fact that I am in many ways doing your job or doing the executive role. I believe the questions that Councilwoman Broden and I are asking is 100% in the role of the legislative branch. Okay? I think that part of the makeup of the board is part of the legislative branch. I think the questions that she talked about and the written questions, I scanned through everything that we could in the matter of tonight. All that's the legislative branch. I believe that sometimes we get criticized when we ask that and say pretty much give the mayor a free hand. I disagree with that. I think it is our firm role to ask questions and to do policy and everything else. Only reason why I can look at that is given one of my key persons I do listen to and have some high respect. I do believe that we have to get it under our umbrella right now. That's the only reason why I look at that. But I don't like, and Ms. Fiesel said something that I can, this whole process, and I can't just blame you all, this whole process has been interesting, okay? This has been a whirlwind of stuff, okay? And that is why we are here today, and it's made it even more frustrating for us as a council, because we should have the time to do our due diligence in meetings and ask these questions and not be in the area planning and zoning thing. We're given 90 days to make decisions after it gets to the council. We're here having to make a decision tonight. There's a reason why the state allows us to do that when we're having the department. It's not because we're trying to be the mayor or run your tour or have any lack of faith in you or any of those kind of things. It gives us a chance so we can be able to ask all the questions, be able to present to all of our neighbors and do our due diligence. This is a crash course tonight. And so that is one of the concerns why I did raise that in the board, in the budget meeting. I sincerely regret that you didn't understand where I was coming from, but hopefully in the future we will have better understanding of that.
Could I ask one thing? I think it would have helped, as we discussed, if we had had an update meeting during the first reading, during the committee on the first reading. And it's hard for me to know unless you guys tell me directly that we could give you updates on so many things. If you just flag for clerk or council president that, this is a first reading thing, we want to get an update early so we can hash out some of these things. Some things, they're pretty straightforward. You think there's consensus on, and we move forward. We probably don't need an update meeting on the first reading day. But if there is something, I just ask to, flag it, and so that we could have this conversation 2 weeks ago rather than.
Mr. President, I don't mind. I support doing that, and Mr. Chair, I'm very glad. In fact, we're doing that with the zoning ZNA to put up updates. The issue that I would like to just share with that is this: we need to be aware when we were doing the budget, there was no prior knowledge that when we was asked that we were going to be given time to discuss this, because I had a lot of these questions and you all shared that, and I backed off. There was no knowledge that we were under that time guidelines that we had to do all these things because these other people were going to sign up to this other agreement and everything. That was not even in the radar today. So when the idea came from Ms. Broden that we have one more meeting, then the strong pushback on that That was a surprise to us. So if there's other negotiations in the background from that standpoint, I think especially those of us on the CID committee should have been made notice of that, and not just the president or whoever, or the chair, whoever was made notice of that on this council. Because I certainly did not come in here this afternoon recognizing that that was going to be an issue.
And we had two more hands up for two last questions or comments. We have Ms. Williams-Preston.
There was some conversation in committee about things being grandfathered, like we want to do this in a way that makes sure we can grandfather certain things in. Can you say something about that? And is there anything that Councilwoman Broden mentioned tonight that would prevent that grandfathering process?
Sure, so the grandfathering unit is the authority and the powers of the commission itself. So that's why I was saying the contemplation was about the staff, not about changing the commission. And if we had the original interlocal agreement, we wouldn't really be messing with, we wouldn't even be looking to change that. And so the danger to the grandfathered status is if we don't have a continuity of service from the county to the city, so we don't have it defined in the statute that it's a community investment responsibility, we don't have the interlocal agreement that we've all come to, there's kind of a limbo period that then puts in question whether there may be a lapse between the new one and that's ambiguous legally, but we were trying to be cautious not to have that ambiguity.
So the only threat to the grandfathering is if there was a lapse in service?
A limbo status of where things fit. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I guess I saw three hands up. So Councilmember Broden, you have a comment or last
So
comment or question?
So
And then
our
Tim Scott.
Historic Preservation Commission was enabled under certain legislation, if you would, that predated state changes that do the balance of the state with other historical preservation commissions. If we were to change this drastically, or separate entirely, I mean, we're grandfathered in as a joint body working together, county, or these services being provided county, city together. So if we cracked that, changed it, then we would have to fall under the existing enabling legislation that the state legislators have adopted. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
President Scott?
Mr. Mueller.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mueller, do you want a vote on this tonight as it is written?
We would prefer a vote on this tonight, yes.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. All of us have not had opportunity
No,
to comment.
I was just going by the chair.
Okay.
Sorry, I
So I don't
apologize.
know. I
Just
want
go down the whole line.
I sometimes look only this
Go
direction.
down the whole line,
Okay.
make sure everybody's heard.
Okay,
Okay.
I just want to say that as I was thinking about the process and thinking about the resolution, the bill that's before us, I was thinking that if we had time to have that second meeting in terms of discussing this particular issue, that we would have the time. But what I'm hearing is that the possibility of that will be challenging for a number of reasons. And I know how difficult it is to get people together. It really is difficult. But what I'm also thinking that as we look at issues such as this, and even through the budget process, each time we've had the budget process, it's been a learning experience. For example, we learn, in terms of as we move towards the conclusion of the budget hearing process, we begin to look at salaries, that this council never had a discussion about having parameters. Was at the council level, what percentages do we feel comfortable? I have since sent an email to the council members asking for feedback, but also looking at those parameters as we look forward to 2018. Likewise, I think that a number of the recommendations that Councilwoman Broden has made, that they can be discussed, and they can also, can the agreement be amended as we move forward? And so I think that we do have opportunity to really get to the point that Councilwoman Broden is looking at, but also when we have these type of critical bills before us, I think it is really important that we utilize those times, either Mondays or Wednesdays, when we don't have council meeting, to really schedule special meetings. And we have not utilized that only during the budget process, but that is opportunity that we have throughout the year. So again, if the agreement can be amended to reflect some of the concerns that you've heard today, I have no difficulties with that because we have that authority to do so. Of course, it would have to be approved by the other entities, but again, I think that we do have that as an option. And if we don't, someone needs to tell me that we can't do that.
And is there anyone that has not made a comment that would still like to comment? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
No, but she said if there's anybody that has a comment, that would like to make a comment.
Still need
Yeah, why are we limiting the comments, I guess? Thank
Do
you.
you have another comment?
Yes, so just to be clear, there is time within the scheduling of the county council, the county commissioners, this body, and our mayor to actually sign an amended interlocal if we chose to do so and had agreement from representatives from those bodies.
As I've said, technically yes, practically very difficult.
Thank you. And a question to our council president, where would this fall within the committee structure of the common council? Would it continue to be under community investment, or would it be under a different committee?
No, it would be under community investment, because it would fall under their department.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, is there a motion? President Scott?
Well, I never got to make a comment.
Oh, you can make a comment, I apologize.
And then, I concur 100% with John Bordy. I think we're getting into the minutia. I think HPC is going to be a different entity after a vote tonight, and it'll be a different entity going forward in next year and probably a decade from now. I think it's going to be for the better all the way around. Improvements, like I said, every conversation I had with anybody on county side, they did not want to have any part of it. I, like human rights, we foot the bill and we go beyond what's necessary outside the city limits. And I see the same thing happening here with HPC. Vice President Davis and I talked about a follow-up 6 months, 9 months, a year from now. And we can do more of that. I guess with no disrespect to my council colleagues, I disagree on looking at the whole minutia, how this is going to go forward. John Bordy hit it on the head, and with that, I make a recommendation, we send this to the full council favorable.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. With that, I will entertain a motion to rise and resolve from the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Full council's now back in session. Ms. Fowler, would you please give third reading to 6817?
6817, third reading on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and seeking a special exception for property located at 403 Prairie Street, Councilmanic District Number 4 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Motion for passage.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 7017, please.
7017, third reading on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at northeast corner of Niles Avenue and Cedar Street, Councilmanic District Number 4 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Motion for passage. Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty?
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Preston?
Aye.
President Scott?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 7117, please.
7117, third reading on an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 1032 Wayne Street, Councilmanic District Number 4 in the city of South Bend, Indiana.
Motion for passage.
Second.
Ms. Fowler?
Councilmember Broughton?
Aye.
Councilmember Varner?
Aye.
Vice President Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty,
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Preston,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
President Scott,
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. 8017, please.
8017, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving interlocal agreement between the City of South Bend and the County of St. Joseph to provide management responsibilities for the Historic Preservation Commission of South Bend and St. Joseph County, the HPC, and amending Chapter 2, Article 4, Section 2-13, Subpart B, 7 of the South Bend Municipal Code to include an administrative function of the Department of Community Investment.
Motion for passage?
Second.
Ms. Fowler.
Councilmember Varner,
Aye.
Vice President Davis,
Present. Aye.
Councilmember Vorty,
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember Preston,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
Councilmember Broden,
Nay.
President Scott,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Move to resolutions. Ms. Fowler, would you read 1776, please?
1776, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as intersection of Jefferson Boulevard and Main Street, South Bend, Indiana 466, as an economic development revitalization area for purposes of a 6-year real property tax abatement for River Park Leasing Corporation.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, community investment met, we send this to our favorable.
Is there a presenter?
Good evening, Dan Buckmeyer, Director of Business Development in the Department of Community Investment, 14th floor of this building. We are here to, we hope, launch a revitalization of the block immediately south of this building. If you look at aerial photographs from the mid or last century, you see a fully activated block, over a dozen buildings. You can walk you could have walked the entire perimeter. And with, except for occasional alleyway, never see a break in the buildings that house residential, retail, office, and entertainment venues. Today, that block only houses 4 buildings and a virtual sea of parking, but we're looking to change that. The northeast corner of the block, shown in an overhead on the left here, at the intersection of Jefferson and Main, was home to the Hotel Jefferson for most of the 1900s. In its heyday, you could book one of their 150 rooms for $1.75 to $3 a night. In 1979, that 4-story structure was demolished. The Hardee's took its place, only to be demolished itself in 2000. Since then, and for about the last 2 decades, that corner of the block is set vacant, owned by the city, generating no revenues or benefits for our citizens. We're thrilled to present an opportunity to avoid this situation for another decade or two and support the development of this prime downtown corner and its eventual return to the tax roll. The Department of Community Investment is recommending the approval of a resolution to designate the corner of Jefferson and Main as an economic revitalization area to aid in the revitalization of that block, and provide an assessed value deduction or tax abatement to the property in order to incent and enable this exciting and important development. The property in question will actually sit on a newly replatted parcel that will include only the easternmost half of the city-owned lot. It's shown in red there, or circled or squared off in red. The city will maintain ownership and control of the western half of that lot in anticipation of incenting and activating future development. Now this will be again, if I haven't said this already, this will be the first new downtown South Bend office building or development in about 20 years, 2 decades. It also sits on a meaningful artery between downtown and the ballpark, and a lot of new development happening around there, including the Hibbert Building, Berlin Flats, etc. And we do anticipate that it will be a catalyst for future building and investment on this block and surrounding areas. Specifics of the proposed building, there's some early renderings shown here, include high-end retail on the ground floor with 4 floors of Class A office above, totaling 5 stories and about 38,000 square feet total. Class A office and retail brings the highest quality design, fit, and finishes to bear for retailers and businesses willing to pay a rent premium for some of the best amenities in the city, and there is meaningful demand for this class of office space in South Bend. When we evaluate an opportunity to support economic development in the city of South Bend, the top 2 of the many factors we look at are the levels of private investment and job creation. This building's expected $9 million price tag represents a significant private investment. It also represents a significant risk. It's important to note that this is a spec building. A new business venture will be housed on the top floor, but the remaining 85% or so of office space, nearly three full floors, remains to be filled. The entire first floor retail space, totaling about 6,000 square feet, is also not contracted at this point. Additionally, I'm sure aware, we are in an era of high construction costs, which also amplifies the risk of any building, and particularly a spec building such as this. The granting of a temporary assessed value deduction or tax abatement is a particularly meaningful way for the city to participate in mitigating the risk of a development like this and enabling the many benefits it can offer to the city and its residents. It also presents no direct cost to us. Known and committed job creation that will stem from this project includes those employees who will be hired to run the new venture proposed for the top floor. The owner has committed to create 15 new jobs in the first 3 years at a payroll of at least $750,000 per year. In addition to those jobs committed by the developer, we anticipate at DCI that there will be significant indirect job creation resulting from the activation of ground floor retail, which could bring anywhere from 15 to 45 jobs, and another 3 floors of office space, which could house as many as 100 or so new or retained jobs for our city and residents. So the numbers for for investment, private investment, and job creation are meaningful. Finally, we believe it's important to point out that the city is selling this parcel to the developer at a price of $50,000. The owner of this development himself cited that the recent revitalization of downtown South Bend is an impetus for his investment and decision to locate here. We're thrilled to present this opportunity to the council and hope that you and our residents are equally excited and supportive of this vote of confidence in our city. Again, this property is sat idle and made no contribution to the tax rolls for decades. DCI staff recommends the council the approval of this resolution for real property tax abatement at 100% for 6 years. When the abatement does sunset and the property hits the tax rolls in or around 2025, the property is expected to generate up to about $250,000 per year in tax revenues to the benefit of our city and our residents. In other words, the zero in the last 20 years is offset by about $5 million in the next 20. So thank you. I'm here, and Jeff Smoke, the petitioner, is here to answer any questions.
The petitioner will give a quick, brief statement, and then I'll turn it over to questions.
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Dan, for a nice introduction. Jeff Smoke, 112 West Jefferson, work for the Capitol. We're pretty excited about this project. It's, like Dan said, it's the first office building in downtown South Bend in a number of years. We're really excited about the modern materials we're using and kind of contemporary design, so we think it's going to breathe new life into the already full capacity office market, and we're excited to do it, so happy to answer any questions.
Great. Vice President Davis.
Yes, thank you. As you talked about, one of you talked about the modernization of your building. Could you talk about any key environmental benefits that the owner is planning to do with the building? I know when we talked about having building transpo, so we went after LEED certification.
Sure.
Are you looking at, they're going after any LEED certification? They're doing anything else that is environment friendly with any of their construction sites?
We're looking at all.
We have the lighting come through and all the other kind of stuff.
Sure, we're looking at all those facets, and given the cost of this office building, the new construction costs out there with rising interest rates, we're going to do what we can. I mean, it's definitely going to be designed. I mean, the most environmentally friendly thing we can do is make it energy efficient, so it consumes less. So we're definitely utilizing the latest technology for that. We're still exploring options for green roofs and things like that to see if it makes sense.
Okay. Ms. Brooke?
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Buckmeyer, thank you for updating the sheet on this in terms of the additional benefits. I thank you, and thank you for a thorough job in general. I do have just a couple questions. Was there an independent appraisal analysis for the land itself, that value?
No, there was not. We have found, with downtown land, in particular vacant land, we find that, or have found that the assessments or appraisals, I'm sorry, that we get are just so widely variant. What we did instead is an internal analysis. We looked at neighboring property, came to a cost per acre for vacant land in near and vacant property, and applied that to the 0.25 acres that we anticipate for the two.
Right, and I asked that because we're asked that as council members.
Certainly.
So I think
Certainly.
that's really important. So I actually set you up on that question. The other, for a point, the other piece is, I'm assuming then that the last advertisement in terms of disposition of this property was some time ago, and for the full plot of land that the...
Yeah, I can't speak to exactly when the last attempted disposition was for that full plat. It was replatted in about 2013 when it would be southerly, I guess, sliver was pulled off for to be added to the Holiday Buildings property and parking associated with that. At that time, I believe it was replatted out of a few different pieces. So it's gone through many iterations, as I understand it, in the past several years in terms of being many parcels and then put back into one.
So this was triggered by the interest of a developer wanting to do the spec product and the entrepreneur who wants to actually have office space on the top floor. So that triggered
Well,
much
there's
of
been a
this.
for sale sign on the property there's a for sale sign on the property, so.
Okay, great. All right. So then my last question is, with regards to the balance of the property to the west, does the developer have an opportunity for first notification rights in terms of acquiring that space? Was that contemplated in the agreement at all? Or do you see
We
what I'm
haven't
getting at?
finalized the purchase agreement yet. That would be done at redevelopment commission. He hasn't asked yet, but it's certainly something we would consider.
I'm curious.
Our goal is
I mean, I just
really
think
our
it
goal
would
to
be
keep-
smart. Yeah.
Right, yeah, makes sense. Our goal in keeping it really is, it will initially be utilized as parking to serve the building, but we don't want it to be parking in perpetuity, if you
Right.
will. We want the ability to activate that street-facing side of the property and so on, if we have the opportunity, but, and then offset that with other parking opportunities, if you will, but, I don't know if I've answered your
That's great.
question.
Yeah, thanks. I'm very excited about it. I appreciate you answering the additional questions.
Ms. White?
I'd like to thank you for your comprehensive report, and the presentation along with pictures are very exciting. Just for the record, we're looking at 100% tax abatement for 6 years. Just for the record, can you clarify what that means? But also, in the last 3 months, how many of the 100% has come before this council?
Okay, in the first part of your question, you said, clarify.
In terms of the tax abatement, they will be paying after.
Well, we can only estimate, because that's
Estimate,
up to the
okay.
assessor
Yeah.
and so on, but, so in our computations, we use an estimate of, for the abated amount of $216,000 per year is what we came to. That was based on a factor of 80% as the value coming off of the $9 million. And then the total on that, total abated over that time is about just over, well, nearly 1.3 million. And then that's where I've estimated by that after that 6-year period, we expect it to be somewhere from that 200 to 250,000 a year range. But again, that's up to the assessor.
And I know when the decision is to move in this direction, there are a lot of factors that you consider as you move forward and bring this before the council.
Absolutely, yeah. And well, we've noted that we're going to do a deeper dive on that in a future meeting, but we have some analytical tools that, in fact, one that we just updated very recently and so on, that we're kind of excited about, factors in depreciation and even the factors of what is being built, whether it's steel and glass or lumber or what have you. So it's a very comprehensive and deep algorithm, if you will, in terms of finding the initial numbers and the objective side of what we look at. And then, of course, if need be, we also take a subjective look at the tax abatement opportunity and say, is it in a particular neighborhood, is it a particular opportunity, is it particular anything? This could, in fact, in my opinion, fall into those subjective that would push it over the edge, but at this point, we use just both those objective measures and fit right into, for the purposes of us and for the developer, into our normal rubric. So.
Thank you.
Dr. Barner, you have
With regards to the property to the west, which we would still own, would there be any restrictions on the land? I mean, if I just built that building, I would not want another 5 or 6 story building going in. So will part of the agreement include restrictions on the use of that land or controls?
Again, we haven't worked through all that absolute detail of the purchase/development agreement, but we're in the midst of it right now.
Any question?
But that means that that's a real possibility.
From the standpoint of community investment, we're not going to do anything that damages, if you will, our ability. I mean, we're keeping this piece of property because it is our absolute desire to have it developed, especially at that street side along Jefferson there.
Well, then I would direct my question to Mr. Smoke.
Sorry.
Is this developer, since you must, or the owner, since you know him well, or them well, are they amenable? I can't believe this got this far without any discussion of what's happening around
Right.
potential
And
new
I
building.
think realistically, the only potential there is for a parking garage in the future, so we're open to that sort of configuration of parking. We only adds value to the building.
So really, your agreement is probably going to end up with some sort of a restriction of use as parking.
We actually haven't gotten into that.
Okay.
I mean,
If I were you, that's what I'd be, and I understand all that, but I think that we put this out there as, look, we're keeping this piece of land for future use. Well, it looks to me like it's probably not going to be the kind of use that is running around in a lot of people's minds. It's going to be a restricted use, which is fine, but I think the public deserves that explanation of, the overall planning for the project. The other thing I'd point out, well, this is in a TIF district.
Yes, sir.
So whether there's zero taxes or whatever the taxes are paid, there will be no new money coming to the general fund. It will all go to TIF districts.
Well, we go to the TIF district, which inevitably then will go back and benefit the TIF district.
It goes to TIF district, yeah. It does not go to the general fund.
Not to the general fund.
Yes?
I think I had another question.
If there was any further use of that property that is not being considered here, wouldn't that not have to come back before us?
Not if they have an agreement.
I'm sure understood that.
The other part of the property that's not being sold, wouldn't that have to come back before us?
No. If redevelopment owns it, it would not have to come back to
The
the council
purchase
for sale.
agreement, sorry, yes, the purchase agreement will go to redevelopment commission and Dr. Barner and.
No, not the purchase agreement. I'm talking about if there was another piece of the property, this is only parts of that property that are, they're not doing the whole parcel. So therefore, if they were coming back for that, wouldn't that not have to come?
If they were requesting like abatement.
If they were requesting like an abatement, so they're looking
Yeah.
Okay, we got any questions? Great, we'll open up the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak in favor of 1776, please come to the podium. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against 1776, please come to the podium. Seeing none, I'll turn it back to Gavin Furlick. Had a comment?
Sure, just want to make a quick comment. Thank you again, Community Investment and Great Lakes for this investment, and for Community Investment, their creativity in terms of preserving actual TIF dollars and direct spend and using tax abatement creatively. The ratio that we've been comfortable with is right in line with the type of development we're seeing, and I just couldn't be more excited about seeing a brand new office building in downtown South Bend. It's been a really long time, so I think it's great.
Quote Gavin Furlick. Mr. Horty.
Yeah, real quickly, I'd like to commend Community Investment and this administration in general for taking advantage of an opportunity that has presented itself for the development of that piece of property. We all know that opportunities to develop that property have come and gone. in the past. And community development, for some unknown reason, I won't name names or point fingers, but we could have had an office building there a long time ago if for some reason, I mean, we could have. And the company that came to the city, we all know, did not have their hand out. They didn't want anything, but for some reason, that overture was rebuffed, and we were stuck with some green space for far too long. So I compliment this administration for taking advantage of an opportunity that has presented itself. Mr. Smoke and your company, I wish you all the success and look forward to a new streetscape.
Okay, Ms. White.
No, I was going to make a motion, but I want to make sure everyone had opportunity for comments.
We're good.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution 17-76.
Second. Ms. Fowler.
Vice President Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Vorty.
Aye.
Councilmember Furlick.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember Preston.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Broden.
Aye.
Councilmember Varner.
Nay, and I'll be glad to explain later.
Okay.
President Scott.
Nothing.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. First readings, please. 8117.
8117. First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana for budget transfers for various departments within the City of South Bend, Indiana for the year 2017.
Motion to send to Personnel and Finance for 1211.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 8217, please.
8217. First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and enterprise operations in 2017 of $49,745 from Consolidated Building Fund, Code Enforcement Fund 600, $1,500 from Waterworks Deposit Fund 624, $1,000 from Waterworks Sinking Fund 625, $4,500 from the Waterworks Debt Service Fund, OM 629, $30,000 from the Sewage Works OM Reserve 643, and $148,300 from Century Center Fund 670.
I make a motion that this bill be sent to Personnel and Finance for December 11th.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 8317, please.
8317. First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city services operations in 2017 of $125,000 from the DCI Grant Fund 212, $100,000 from State Seized Drug Money Fund 216, $250,000 from the Liability Insurance Fund 226, $49,000 from the Kovaleski Stadium Fund 401, $955,670 from the Vehicle Equipment Leasing Fund 750, $22,500,000 from the Eddy Street Commons Capital Fund 759, and $2,500,000 from Eddy Street Commons Debt Service Fund 760.
Motion to send to Personnel and Finance for 1211.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 8417, please.
8417. First reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending Chapter 2, Article 14, Section 2-170 of the South Bend Municipal Code to establish various new funds: the Moores Performing Arts Center Self-Promoted Events Fund, number 274, Parental Leave Fund 714, and the 2017 Parks Bond Fund 471.
Motion to send to Personnel and Finance for 1211.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Move to unfinished business. Any unfinished business? Seeing none, we'll move to new business. Ms. White.
I'd just like to just give a brief update. Councilwoman Joe Roden and Councilwoman Regina Preston Williams and I attended the school board meeting in terms of, was a community meeting that is focusing on their new focus, which is South Bend Schools Focus 2018. I brought back copies of the proposal for all council members. I think it's important that we enlighten ourselves in regards to the upcoming proposed changes, because schools are in our neighborhood. The quality of education is critical, not only for our students, but also for the city. So that, again, there are two websites. If you would like to make comments, I would encourage you to do so. Look through the plan. And again, it's important that we are part of the discussion. This is an opportunity for public input, and I would encourage all council members to do so. If you look at the report that was shared, they're planning to move the fifth graders back into the elementary schools and to create full-fledged middle school systems for grades 6 through 8. 3 schools will be closed and 3 schools will be repurposed. A later start for adolescent students will be established. High school boundaries, the magnet programs, and open enrollment will remain unchanged, and transportation will be streamlined, and the shuttles will be eliminated, and students will be directly routed to their home schools or schools of choice. So again, look through the report. I think it's important that we have a clear understanding, and that, that even as a council, we can look through these changes, because all of our districts will be impacted.
Absolutely.
And so I know Councilman Broden and Councilman Preston also attended the meeting.
Thank you all for going to
Do you have any
those.
comments?
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
So the vote date is prior, the South Bend School Corporation Board is Monday, December 18th, just to put that out there. And then I wanted to ask anyone if they are aware of whether there would be minutes available from today's meeting in advance of that, or if the public comment area is actually truly comment, or is it truly public? Has anybody looked at that and has seen if that's
Can you repeat
an
that?
ongoing?
Minutes from what part?
The minutes from tonight's meeting, public forum, and then I understand there is a public comment area, two sites, and whether or not those are publicly displayed, if you would, the questions that have been raised.
We can ask
Or whether
our
it's
city
just
clerk
input.
if she can follow up with those questions, because I think that's important
I
information.
think that would be helpful
Okay.
for council to be apprised of those things.
What time is the meeting on the 18th?
5:30?
I'm sorry.
Still at 5:30? All the meetings are
So
5:30?
check that, they'll start at
5:30.
5:30.
Oh, wow.
And
Third
that's when
floor.
they plan on taking action. I don't know how they're gonna take the feedback that they've received, because my understanding that they've met at some of the schools that they are planning or propose to close, so they have that feedback as well.
Dr.
So I
Brown.
would encourage any council members, if they can, to attend that December 18th meeting.
In an effort to perhaps more complete the dissemination, could we ask Ms. Fowler to put this on the council website also?
Oh, yes.
So that, and perhaps if there's a link then to the website for
To
the
the
school
school
corporation.
Question.
But if you find, it'll make it easier for people to find it, and, or if that, I say the council, perhaps the city would want to put it on their website, their portion of the website also, because it is.
I'll check too to see what their policy is for the school corporation.
Those two links are open, and I do believe that at one meeting prior to the meeting today, that they mentioned that this proposal is available online as well.
Regina.
Okay, I just want to say briefly, I think that given, and I say this all the time, I love the fact that out of 9 of us, 5 of us are actually educators here on the council. Yeah,
Well, I
right?
am. I am too, just a
well,
different
see,
way.
we all are in our own ways, right? Don't get me started. Okay, but, you know, how important we know that education is to economic development and that connection within the city. I know that traditionally people have said, oh, well, the city has nothing to do with schools. But I would just really, especially given the depth and breadth of experience that these particular council members have, that we take an active role in reviewing and understanding what's happening, and don't be afraid to make recommendations or speak out about it, because I think that even if you look at the school board, I think there are fewer educators on our actual school board than there are on our city council, you know? So that's one thing. Another thing I just want to bring, again, being a teacher in the South Bend Community Schools, you know, watching and seeing what's happening, like the impact. It's one thing to be on paper, But I think that we really need to take a look at the magnet programming. This is, again, something for us to really investigate and think about, because the way it's been done in the corporation thus far really has served to resegregate the schools. And, so when it comes to, allocating dollars to the schools and making sure there's equity and making sure there's some accountability in terms of, because it's not just a feel-good issue, like our kids being educated. Like, really, I want to be able to look at the numbers for that. So I would just encourage us to take an active role. Don't be afraid to speak up, speak out, and ask questions of our board members and listen to the community on this.
Thank you. Vice President Davis.
Earlier this afternoon, during the Health and Public Safety meeting, we talked about having a meeting on December the 18th at 5 o'clock. I understand. I did not check with the clerk's office. That's the only date I checked with. I did not check with the clerk's office to see if the 20th was available. That Wednesday.
That Wednesday, the 20th?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just wanted to have that. Is there?
Let me look.
Would you be able to? And then I can notify people who may have come this afternoon.
Wednesday, the 20th. It's pretty open for the clerk's office.
Pardon me?
It's pretty open for the clerk's office.
Okay, then if with all due respect to the chair of that committee, given the nature of this board meeting, not board, what they call it, school board, yes, board meeting, good council meeting, that we move that to that Wednesday, if that's possible, for those in the health and public safety, and that way everybody was.
Does it check off with other committee members?
I'm just checking out. I'm open. Only thing I have planned was shopping.
Good.
Other
John Vorty, Karen White, Albert Davis.
I'm available.
Okay, good. Then we
Okay.
got a
All right, I appreciate that change, and then can you just note that on this website so we won't have to worry about that? Thank you.
We'll advertise that. I do want to say one other thing under new business. It's the end of the year, and I'd like to have reports from your department or your committee reports in by 12/22. If possible, that gives us basically a half a week to get them posted, make them public. So that's basically what you guys did per committee, who was on your committees, what you guys accomplished. It can be very brief. In the past, our lawyer has helped out tremendously on that. We will not have our lawyer doing that. You can write them. You need editing. I'm sure the clerk's office would probably help with some editing. But we have a change in job description there. But if you can do by 12/22, this is state law. So some of you guys got them in late last year. Please, everybody get them in on time. That gives you basically a less than a week pad to finish those up. So those have to be public record, part of the transparency. All right, we good?
No. Yeah, I thought we have to vote for the issue of the meeting.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, see, I tell you.
Like to entertain a motion to cancel the 12/25 Common Council meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
We not have cookies on Christmas?
Yes, you will, but not here.
All right, thank you.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. So we will get that officially out again, that we will not meet on Christmas. I know there's some of you that would like to. Bob?
January 2nd.
Organization.
I don't know how I'm going to explain that to my voters.
We need a motion on it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion to move the organizational meeting to January 2nd to avoid the
So
holiday.
moved. Are we still set at 5 o'clock?
5:30.
5:30. I'm at peace.
5:30 on 1/2 organizational meeting. Is that your motion?
My motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
5:30. 5:30.
We said a lot tonight.
30.
Okay, we will move to the privilege of the floor. Mr. Furlick, will you keep time? This is where citizens can come and speak to the Common Council. There will not be a question or answer debate back and forth. It's where you give information to the Common Council. Anything pertinent will be assigned to committee or assigned to council members or reassigned to the administration, which we like doing that. You have 3 minutes. You cannot talk about anything that was on the agenda tonight. And please state your name and address and go.
Sue Custom, 422 Kennedy Drive. South Bend. It's a comment in general about the abatements. I know that Dr. Varner had talked about this in committee. In general,
That's
what I
part
want
of
to
the
talk,
deal.
what I want to talk about is I don't think the taxpayers are getting enough value for their money. That when you give an abatement, all abatements, not a particular abatement, it needs to come with a LEED Silver certified building, because we're building for the future. We've seen how all these buildings have fallen apart, they've cost the taxpayers a lot of money, and all that sort of thing. So in the future, what I think for the taxpayers to get value for their money is those tax abatements need to have some sort of requirement that they're built well and for the future generations. And so I would recommend that we look at tacking on, Silver LEED certification as a bare minimum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good job. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good night, everybody.
9 on a dot.
Have a good one.
Have a good night, Bob. It was freezing in here today. My clothes started closing up a little bit.
My hands are cold.
I know, mine too. So you had a good holiday?
I did. How about you?
It was good. So you said you had pizza and what else?
Chick-fil-A.
Nice. Very nice.
This is the second year we've done that.
Thank you. That's
Kids
very
are happy.
nice. What was the dessert?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We didn't spend a lot of time cooking or cleaning. We
That's
spent
nice.
time
But
with...
what about dessert? What about
We did have dessert. We did.
Okay.
We had
What did
pies.
Okay. You
And my
didn't get
son-
it for Chick-fil-A, did you?
No.
Okay.
My son's birthday was the day before Thanksgiving, so we had birthday cake left over.
Oh,
and-
okay. Nice.
So,
No, that sounds like a lot of fun. Because it's just too much stress with all that cooking and stuff. It's just because as a mom, like for me, it's stress.
well, my wife, she'll worry about cooking not being done until it's, brown or black or what, and then nobody wants it.
It's too much stress.
Thank you, John.
I almost didn't want to go down that path.